You're listening to Power Pearls Podcast, intuitive, purpose-driven yarn crafting to empower your knits and pearls. Hey, Power Pearlers. Before we get started with this episode, just a few quick announcements for you. I first want to share that Power Pearls Unplugged now has a new home on IGTV. You can check out my new videos every week by visiting me on Instagram, checking out my channel. You can find me by searching at Kara Got Warner. So make sure to follow me so you know when I post new videos. Also, if you want to stay even more connected, join my email list to get updates on new videos, podcast episodes, challenges, and mini courses, and of course, other activities that I'm up to. So go to karagotwarner.com/updates. Okay, on with the show. I hope you enjoy. Hey, you guys, welcome to another episode of Power Pearls Podcast. So today, what I want to do is treat this like a mini on-air coaching session for you. So I'm not coaching anyone in particular, but what I'd like to do is offer advice to those of you that are out there wanting to start a business, a creative business, but you're not a designer, because that's not the only way to kind of dip your toes into the yarn crafting space. So what I'm going to talk about today is 10 scrappy ways to blend your skills and passion to start a yarn crafting business. And I'm calling this Beyond the Pattern. And I'm putting up air quotes right now. You can't see it. Beyond the Pattern. Because this was actually inspired by a question that one of the listeners named Cynthia wrote in, and I'm going to read that now for you guys because I think that there may be many of you in this similar boat. So here is the question. I'd really love to learn more about those who use yarn crafts beyond selling patterns. Since most successful yarn craft businesses are doing more than selling patterns on Ravelry, I'd love to hear more about that side of things. The networking, other income streams, teaching, etc. I love learning how to design pieces and am totally using that in my own business. I'm trying to dream big and think the long game. Well, this is such a great question that Cynthia posed. And so what this inspired from me is a big brain dump of 10. I have 10 ways. I have more than 10, but I thought these, I narrowed it down because I really wanted to make this as succinct and meaningful for you as possible. So I'm calling this a brain dump of all the ways you can start a Beyond the Pattern business. And now, mind you, these are not necessarily in order of, skill level or what you should pursue first, second, third, whatever. This is, like I said, a brain dump, which is more like, just one big brainstorming session, so to speak. And I have them all for you right here. So these 10, I'm going to go through each one of them right now. Okay, so I think we might as well just jump right in, right? So without further ado, I'm going to kind of go through all 10 of these. All right, so let's dive into number one. Number one is teach what you preach. Okay, so this might be scaring some of you that are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm not an expert. I'm not, ready to teach. I still have so many skills that I need to develop. Well, I just would like for you to just put those limiting beliefs aside just for a little bit because you only need to be a couple of steps ahead of those that you teach. The bottom line is you need to be able to explain something in a very clear way so that the people that you are teaching understand it, feel inspired, and they don't feel overwhelmed. And so if you can organize information in that way, then it's like gold and you can definitely teach. And, the thing that's cool about being just a couple of steps ahead of the people that you're teaching, it means that you're really close to the material. And when you teach, and you're still new yourself, the more you teach that subject, the better you become. right? So if you are teaching on the same topic and the same types of things over and over again, which I highly recommend that you do, because then you can sort of build your niche or your niche, however you say it, in that area, and get known for, maybe you're like the mitered knitting queen or something like that. I don't know. So you can teach at venues that are live, right? So in-person venues like the National Needle Arts Trade Association, which is TNNA. You guys hear me talk about TNNA all the time. Stitches, Vogue Knitting Live, those types of events. So both trade and consumer events. And when you teach at places like this, you are able to gain that trust much quicker when people, there's something about people seeing you stand up, when you're standing up in front of a group and you're teaching, people automatically look at you as an expert. And it just helps you to gain those hot and warm leads, especially if you'd like them to sign up for your newsletter, learn more about you later, just kind of to stay in touch. So this is a great, great way to do it. Because I personally teach at live venues, and I just recently taught at TNNA in June. And it was a how to use a podcast and leverage the digital media space to essentially be like a media company. And so that was what I taught at TNNA. And it was great because I got to meet people face to face. I got to hear their problems on the spot. And, and I just put out a sheet to let people know, hey, go ahead and sign up for my newsletter. And everybody signed up. So it is really a great way to do that, especially if your class goes over really well. People will definitely be interested in what you have to say when you're doing things online. And then so it's that's the live component. And then the online component is teaching on platforms like Teachable, which I use Teachable for my online school, and also on your own website, which I mentioned, and Thinkific. So I'll do my best to include these links. So I'm just kind of mentioning these now. No need to take notes, because if you go to you see them, you'll see them in the blog post, and you can hopefully click through these and get more information. Okay, so that was number 1. Okay, so let's dive into number 2, write news and tutorial articles for knitting and crochet. Now, this is something that you can do for magazines. You can do it for, both print magazines and online magazines, for various different websites. And you can become like that go-to person. And Tabitha Hedrick, who you guys have heard on the show, she was that person for me when I was the executive editor of Creative Knitting. And she still writes for the magazine today. And I recognize her as that person that could really fill holes. She was like this amazing person of value that could jump into a situation. If I had, I was like, oh no, I need, an article on, how to do mosaic knitting or whatever, she could jump in and just totally adapt. And she could, and you know what, even if she didn't know too much about the subject, she was a good researcher. And so she could curate information and write the articles. And she's just so good at that. And so organized. And that is a big factor right there. Going back to, that what I said before, organizing information. If you're a teacher, same thing, applies to being able to write news and tutorial articles for publishers. So this could be a great outlet. And also you could offer webinars. You could do like live webinars or recorded webinars for trade organizations. And I did something for the Craft Industry Alliance. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but I highly recommend that you join. And the membership, it's so affordable, and the resources are amazing. I mean, I just, you can find so much to help you and support you in your new craft business. They have some great, every week they have this thing called Coffee Clatch. I hope I said that right. But it's just like getting together with a cup of coffee and, talking with other people in business, other people that are dealing with the same stuff that you're dealing with. But anyway, you can write for them too. And so they send out calls for submissions. So maybe this is the first time you're hearing that term used. So you can get on lists. And you can get on, this goes for magazines like Creative Knitting, like Vogue Knitting, like Interweave, like Crochet Magazine, all of these magazines, right? But then you can also get on the call for industry publications like Craft Industry Alliance, like Yarn Market News, and other digital magazines. I think, like there's Knitty, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but, if you were to do a search and to spend time searching for magazines online and print that you could submit tutorial articles, news articles, maybe, suggest a webinar or some other kind of innovative idea, then you could throw them all into a spreadsheet and just keep things in the pipeline. Just keep on, seeing what's going on, see what their trends are, offer your expertise, see how you can fill holes for them, always be a person of value and ready to do some work. Okay, so number 3 is become a virtual assistant or a project manager for designers and yarn companies. Now, you may have seen the term VA, like the acronym, I guess you would call it an acronym, but the letters, VA or PM, not private message, but VA, virtual assistant, and PM for project manager. And so those are 2 different things. And so I work with both. I work with a project manager and a virtual assistant. Now, a project manager, their rates are usually higher and they do more high-level things like craft blog post articles, write your newsletters, and a virtual assistant does more administrative stuff like, organize spreadsheets, field customer service queries, manage. You can hire them as a Facebook admin. There are so many different ways to use, VAs and project managers, and you could always search. So there's a place called Virtual Angel Hub, and this is an organization that actually hires VAs. So like you could actually become a VA through a place like Virtual Angel Hub, but it's also a good place to kind of be a little bit of a spy and see what are the kinds of things that virtual assistants do. And you can also Google it, of course, make best friends with Google. That's what I always say. So if you're able to, if you're very organized, and first of all, being close to this, industry, we know the culture, we know the yarn crafting space. And if you're highly organized and you can batch like a boss, then you can totally do this. And so it's a good idea to even offer a trial to someone, test the waters, do things for free. I know you probably don't want to hear that, but in the beginning, it's a really good idea to do that because, if they like your work, you're going to keep going anyway. So what do you have to lose? That's what I say. And you know what? That's how I got started in just about every single thing I do and I've done. I said, yeah, I can do that, even if I wasn't really sure I could do it. And I always delivered. It's just confidence. And you know what? You research it. You can't do something when you have no skill in that area at all. I mean, you need time to develop it. But if you do have skills but it's just about, that thing that I've said before, do that one scary thing every day. Like, deep down, you probably know you can do it, but it's scary because you have some additional things you have to figure out. So, like I said, you can check out VA sources just to do a little homework and do a little research. And then there are other resources like Upwork, Odesk. I think those are still around. They need those types of freelance websites change names and they kind of merge a lot. But if you just do a search for freelance websites or how to get freelance work or how to become a virtual assistant, just spend some time researching, and believe me, you're going to find exactly what you need in this area. And then number 2 is becoming an illustrator. So if you have skills that, you're good at drawing, or you've done maybe some, you've dabbled in using Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop. So I have been doing this for years. And so I have a background in illustration and I still work as an illustrator. And I do layout work. I do technical illustrations for book publishers, for independent designers. for just there's so many different opportunities that are out there when it comes to if you're a good illustrator and a good layout artist. And I use Adobe. There are other programs out there. No, I don't think that Canva, PicMonkey are necessarily the way to go. I'll talk about some other options with that in a second. But, to be like a true illustrator where you're drawing digital programs, using Adobe is a really good idea to understand how that works. And you can totally teach yourself. So I'm just going to say straight up, forget the people that tell you that you have to have a degree to work as an illustrator. I have a degree, but it's not as I do have an illustration degree. Okay. But I'm totally self-taught when it comes to using, Illustrator. I also taught myself how to use Corel Draw. Now, this is a lower priced product, so you could use Corel, but I highly recommend Illustrator if you can swing it, because now back in the days when I started working as an illustrator, it was easily $1,000 just to have the software, and now you can pay monthly for just using one program, or you can use the full Adobe suite, which is what I do because I use it, for recording this podcast. There's all kinds of programs, Adobe Audition. I use Adobe Illustrator, InDesign. I use Photoshop and Premiere, which is the video editing program. So, it's something to look into, something that if you're really passionate about this, you can totally teach yourself, because I love being an illustrator and I totally geeked out, and it took some time, but you know what? It's worth the effort, because if you're really good, you can get some good work too. Okay, and number 5 is layout artists. So you could actually lay out patterns for other designers, for yarn companies, for magazines, on both online, so digital magazines and print magazines. So when you see a magazine like Creative Knitting, like Vogue Knitting, those are all laid out in a program called InDesign. And so basically it is an Adobe product, and it's a system of frames, basically, so you can lay out copy, you can lay out photos and other elements. So it's not so hard to learn. You could totally learn how to use it. So this is for those of you that are ready to geek out and you want to get the Adobe suite. It's called the Adobe Creative Suite. So InDesign is part of it. And so in conjunction with using a program like Illustrator and Photoshop, and then I would create illustrations, plug those into InDesign while I'm laying out the document or the pattern or whatever it is. So that's another way to use your skills if, graphic design is your thing. And then let's say, I'm good. I got a good eye. I don't want to mess around with that stuff. So here's number 6. You could become a logo designer or just create just elements for people, like branding elements. So you could offer this as a standalone service. So if you have a good eye for design, you can totally use PicMonkey. You could use Canva. So I don't know if you guys are familiar. I'm going to kind of just act like you don't know. So PicMonkey and Canva, and they can be used together. I use them together. I used to, but not so much, because I really do. I use Photoshop and Illustrator for most of the work that I do. But PicMonkey is more like a photo editing program, so you can kind of manipulate photos. There is some control for creating frames and, some different types of layout elements that you could use. But Canva is sort of like InDesign. So what you could simulate, you could do, so like for example, let's say you're in Canva, if you're familiar with it. In Canva, I recommend you guys check out Canva, canva.com and PicMonkey.com. Pic is PICMONKEY. And in Canva, you'll see, let's say you search a document like, like some sort of a report or an info product or whatever. I'm just trying to think of, some of the documents. But you could go to the documents section and you could search many different types of documents. And you could see maybe something that would kind of look like it could be a pattern layout with 2 columns, let's say, with some images, with some H1, and that's just kind of like, designer speak, or I should say layout speak. Yeah, designer layout speak. So that's a heading. So heading number 1. So there's all, H1 is your main heading, H2, 3, those are like subheadings. And then you can add, like I said, photos, you can add graphics, and drop in copy, and everything is framed in some of these types of documents that you can create on Canva. The only drawback is that they are lower resolution, but it's mainly because these images are meant for, publishing on the web. And I'm going to scratch that because actually they are for the print version. Like if you're designing a document, you can actually download the PDF, a printable PDF or a low resolution PDF. So you do have those options. So there you go. You could just design some standalone designs, logos, and elements by using PicMonkey and Canva. And then number 7 is you could offer a copywriting service. So in episode 90, which was actually right before this one, you should go back and listen to that. So if you go to powerpearlspodcast.com/90, so powerpearlspodcast.com/90, and you can listen to this episode is about how to write snappy and irresistible copy, and we provide some resources there. And so check that out because, you could offer this to the industry by, if you feel like you're really good at writing or you want to perfect your skills, there's definitely there are some options there to write blog posts. You could write, just some marketing materials for yarn companies, for designers, for publishers. You could do marketing copy. There's a lot of opportunity there that you could check out if you have those skills. And also for yourself, if you are trying to promote your own business, creative business, it's indispensable. The ability to write good copy online is like, I don't know, I feel like a number 1 thing you need to have that skill. So check episode 90. Okay. So number 8 is offer editorial services. Okay. So this can be named a few different things. So some companies, I've heard them call it pattern support and others call it creative director. So it just depends on like what level of support that they need. So I do this with companies, with yarn companies, because everyone is so different. So I've actually done pattern support for a few companies. And then with others, it's more like you're a creative director because you're handling not just kind of the logistics of getting the proposals in, organizing them into folders, outreach to the designers, handling any errors that come in for patterns. So everything and anything that has to do with maintaining the pattern collection, there is actually a job role for that. And so when I was the editor of Creative Knitting, I had an editorial assistant and managing editors. That's what they did at the magazine. So a managing editor would handle all the moving parts of the magazine and make sure that all the puzzle pieces fit together. And so an assistant would be that front person that would talk to designers. They would organize all the patterns into folders and keep all the graphics in other folders or in other places. Because, when it comes to, especially a magazine, there are hundreds of moving parts, hundreds of pieces. There might be 30 patterns, and then, every pattern has, not every pattern, but a lot of the patterns have schematics, and they have photos, and they have charts. So there's lots of different pieces there that have to be managed, and if they're not organized well, this can create a nightmare. It might seem like a simple thing. So companies look for someone that can be that support person. So there's an opportunity right there. And then number 9 is sample making and tech editing. Now I group this together because they kind of work hand in hand in many respects, because if you're out there and you're designing yourself, you need a sample maker and a tech editor. So, both of these, one helps the other, I personally think. So 2 wings of a bird, I don't know, maybe. Now there are Ravelry groups that you can check out, and You can learn more about how, the interworkings of what it takes to become a sample maker and what sample makers do, what tech editors do. And again, like I said earlier, about offering your services for free is a really good idea, and be willing to test patterns. Now, always, you probably, until you get your footing, until you get a reputation, you will have to test patterns for free. So someone might say, sure, that sounds great. If you're a tech editor, I'd love to test you. I'm going to give you this pattern. And then there'll probably be some errors, that the designer knows about, just because they want to make sure that you are going to catch those things. So be willing to test for free. And then number 10 is you can become a coach. So if you have experience and a measure of success in your field, you can actually teach others how to do the same with a program, right? So let me give you an example. So you guys know I talk about this. So I offer my expertise. I'm paying forward all the things that I've learned in my more than 15 years in the yarn crafting space, the publishing space, as a designer, as an illustrator. And so, this is something that I can say, hey, you know what? I can package this, productize it, so to speak, and offer this as a program and coach others through the process. And so if you're able to create a program, and let's say maybe this program takes someone through certain things in 4 weeks, or maybe you have a 6-week program, or you do something that's maybe in a book form or one-on-one. So there's so many different ways to do it, but it's a great idea to kind of know exactly who you want to reach, what it is that you want to help them with, so you can qualify who it is that you're going to work with, and then offer them a program. Because if you know who you're going to talk to, who you're going to reach and what they need, then your program will be tailored to them. So chances are they're going to be interested and they'll take you up on it. So those are the 10, you guys. So I'm going to recap really, really quick, and then we're going to wrap it up. So number 1 is teach what you preach. Number 2 is write news and tutorial articles. Number 3 is become a virtual assistant or a project manager for designers and yarn companies. Number 4 is you can become an illustrator. Number 5, you can be a layout artist. Number 6 is you can be a logo designer. Number 7, copywriting service. Number 8, or offer editorial services. Number 9, you can offer sample making and tech editing. And number 10, you can become a coach. So if you're willing to put your feelers out there, get a little scrappy, then you can make a living by being closely connected to the yarn industry, even if you're not a pattern designer. And the truth is, you cannot make a living strictly by designing patterns. So I just want to really put this out there. I think it's a really good idea to, really put your feelers out there, like I said, and use your skills and your talents, to see where can I, who can I connect with? How can I use this in a certain capacity in this industry that I love so much? So there are people that are out there just designing, but they are the exception, and it is a long haul. So I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but I just want you to, just to realize that, if it's something that you want to do, great, go for it, because it can be a long haul. It could be. I'm not saying it will be. It could be if this is your sole endeavor. Like I said, I've seen people do it, but they are definitely the exception. And so a great goal out of the gate is to blend together your passion with your special skills and then figure out a way to market that. So I hope you liked this little kind of coaching session, if you will, sort of like a coaching session answering Cynthia's question. And I hope that you guys find this valuable, and maybe maybe some of these will spark some really cool ideas for you. So before we wrap up, I just want to share that I have a very special gift for you. It is a special audio training, and it's called The Secret Sauce to a Thriving Creative Business. And in this little audio training, I will share 5 steps that you can implement starting today that will help you uncover your sometimes not so obvious skills and talents. They are there, and it is your job to find them. They can be just like your nose, actually. They're always so close that you can't see them. So The secret sauce is your ability to put your feelers out there in multiple ways to become a scrappy creative. This is how you'll stay busy, keep the pipeline full, and avoid functioning from a place of fear and urgency. So, to sign up, go to karagottwarner.com/secret sauce. All right, you guys, that about does it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed this, and please share this with anyone that you think would benefit from this episode and also the secret sauce training, because it is totally free and it's my gift to you guys. So please take advantage of this special opportunity while it lasts. So without further ado, I will sign